Are we back? Normally when Disney World releases a big update, I ask, is it an upgrade or a downgrade? And that's because the early 2020s were a period of hit or miss. There was plenty to love, but there were also frustratingly slow timelines and budget cuts that regular guests could feel. But Disney just did something they've never done before. They used to build an entire season around one big attraction update. This summer, there are 9. 5 of them are major ride overhauls, plus new shows, a Bluey takeover, and a completely reimagined area, all dropping within a few weeks of each other. I just got back from Disney World after trying them all, and it's not hit or miss, it's only hit. There isn't a downgrade in the bunch. So the real question is, which upgrade is the best upgrade? And the bigger question, the one I can't stop thinking about, is what this onslaught of updates reveals about the current state of Imagineering and the future of the parks. Because Disney isn't saying this, but these refreshes are part of a larger strategy that has everything to do with expansions like Villains Land. I'm James Gross from Guide to WDW, and Disney just invited me to try out everything new at Disney World this summer. And today I'm going to take you along for the ride, or actually rides, including the one I rode 11 times and somehow still didn't see everything on. The roller coaster that made me laugh for the first time in almost 30 years. And the one update that has been surprisingly controversial. That's the wildest ride in the wilderness. Or is it the mildest ride in the wilderness? We'll find out. Big Thunder just reopened after a 1.5-year overhaul, including updated show scenes, restored effects, and refreshed audio animatronics. As a side note, Disney did confirm that the possums that were missing when the ride reopened are coming back. But the biggest change is the completely new track. Now, it's the same track layout that debuted in 1980, but now with a much more modern, much smoother ride. That new track is one of the big reasons that Disney has been able to actually lower the height requirement from 40 inches to 38 inches, the same as Slinky Dog or Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. And here's where the controversy comes in. People are saying it's too smooth, too watered down. Some people are even accusing it of being slower. So what did I think after going on it?
I have to say, it's still the wildest ride in the wilderness. It is definitely speedy. Whoever is talking about the top speed being slower, it does not feel slower. It feels much smoother, much less rough on your body, but still a thrill.
It's so much better. First, the updated scenes inside the caverns and caves add a lot of life to the ride, in a similar way that the TNT explosion scene did at Disneyland several years ago, but giving this version of Big Thunder its own unique feel. The exterior scenes also just look very fresh, and I much prefer this new track to the old track. Look, I get that the rough, shaky profile of the old coaster added to the wildness of the ride. It felt somewhat era-appropriate that a runaway train would beat you up a bit. Maybe it's just that I'm getting older, or that modern coasters have spoiled me, but I just prefer a smooth ride. I get a much stronger feeling of speed from a smooth coaster. And speaking of speed, Disney confirmed to Scott Gustin that the ride is actually slightly faster than it used to be. And Disney said that they didn't set out to lower the height requirement. That was just a happy consequence of the more modern track. The biggest win is that this is a much more accessible coaster. With the lower height requirement, more kids can ride it. And for people my age or older, smoothness is a huge win. The old Big Thunder was a one and done for me. This new one, I wanted to go right back on it. The biggest loser, DIY urology. Big Thunder is not going to help you dislodge your kidney stones anymore. This is a big upgrade that sets the ride up for the future. But it might not even be the best upgrade inside Magic Kingdom. Because let's go over to another classic ride that's been reinvented for tomorrow. Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin. On the surface, this upgrade seems minor. You can hold the blasters now like at Disneyland, that makes aiming better. The targets are digital and light up. There are new sound effects and haptic feedback letting you know when you hit a target. The rides now have a new screen for your score. There's a new opening scene, but the rest of the ride is basically the same, with some refreshed effects and a fresh coat of paint. And what surprised me most about this recharged Buzz is that all of these updates are way more than the sum of its parts. Individually, the gameplay updates are all quality of life improvements that together have a huge impact on the feel of the game. Everything feels so much more responsive. The sound effects and the haptic feedback, and the simple change of having a red laser and a green laser per ride vehicle makes it so much easier to tell where you're blasting, and whether or not you're hitting a target. That simple shift makes the game 10 times more fun to play. And behind the scenes, Disney's doing something surprising. Jacob Kroll from Tech Radar reports that Imagineers used Unreal Engine to power the scoring system for the new version of Buzz. It allows for gameplay variability and tracking stats, but I think it plays a huge role in the upgraded responsiveness and feel. I think the best encapsulation about how different this ride feels is the space tunnel. For years, that scene always felt like you should be able to blast what's projected on the screen. And maybe there were secret targets in there, it was hard to tell, and I can't tell you with 100% certainty if all the blasting I did in that room over the decades meant any difference with the old version. But the new version? This scene has been updated to be fully interactive. This acts like a mini raid in the middle of the ride where you all have to work together to blast these giant targets that are worth a ton of points. It was immediately responsive and engaging. Add in all the secret targets and it just revitalizes Buzz. When this ride opened in 1999, it was a revelation for me. A ride that's also a game based on one of my favorite movies. I was instantly obsessed, and my dad and I went on it as much as we could. These new updates recaptured that feeling from when I was a kid, but with so many drastic improvements. I went on the new Buzz twice, and each time I wanted to instantly go back again and try to get a higher score. I haven't felt that in a very long time. And based on conversations I've had with other creators and Disney fans, I know I'm not alone. Disney knocked this update out of the park. And seeing what Disney did with Big Thunder and Buzz, there's a huge story about where the parks are heading. If you're the kind of person who wants to know the why and not just the what, hit subscribe, because that's exactly where we're going next. I think the quality and the timing of all these updates say a lot about what we can expect with Josh tomorrow as CEO. And no, it's not because Josh becomes CEO in March and now we have some great updates a couple months later. It doesn't work like that. But what's happening now is the result of moves Josh D'Amaro started making 3 years ago, shortly after Bob Chapek left and Bob Iger returned. D'Amaro was instrumental in bringing back Bruce Vaughn to lead Imagineering in 2023, and Disney announced a $60 billion investment in the parks and experiences, as well as a strategic investment and partnership with Epic Games, the makers of Unreal Engine, which has played a major part in a few of these attraction updates. This combination of creative leadership and investment is not only allowing for Disney to make better attractions, but also do it at a faster pace than I've seen in the past across multiple projects. Fast Company recently reported that Bruce Vaughn is bringing his experience in tech startups to encourage Imagineering to be more nimble. And I think that deploying this many major updates at the same time is evidence of that. And when I asked them about this, Disney told me that they're working faster than ever to have these updates strategically timed, with Buzz getting a refresh ahead of Toy Story 5, Muppets Rock and Roller Coaster debuting just a few months after the Smash Hit Muppet Show special, and the next giant update.
Disney just overhauled Millennium Falcon Smugglers Run with a completely new mission featuring Mandalorian and Grogu. So just how much different is Millennium Falcon Smugglers Run?
It isn't just Malibu Stacy has a new hat or Beskar helmet. In other words, they didn't just add Grogu to the old ride and called it new. The line and the pre-show have very subtle changes that I think most guests won't even notice. But once you are in the cockpit of the Falcon, everything has been overhauled. First, it looks way better. The graphics are higher resolution and look crisper, thanks to upgrades behind the scenes like Unreal Engine 5 and new NVIDIA graphics cards. The previous mission looked like a Star Wars video game. This looks closer to a Star Wars movie. I don't think it's quite to the level of Star Tours, which is pre-rendered. Millennium Falcon is being rendered in real time on those graphics cards, but that gap has closed significantly. There have also been gameplay upgrades. The biggest headline change is that the ride always starts in Tatooine, which now acts like a tutorial, and then one of the engineers picks the final destination, which is the bulk of the mission. You can go to Cloud City, Coruscant, or the wreckage of the second Death Star, and which engineer picks is randomized. This change alone adds so much to the ride, because each of these 3 destinations has its own unique moments and surprises. But the gameplay changes go well beyond just engineer getting a more important role. There are branching paths within each of these levels, and secrets to uncover. The pilots can navigate those branches. A very early choice is to go left or right on Tatooine. The gunners now have environmental objects they can shoot and destroy, plus a missile button that charges and can shoot up to 5 targets simultaneously. The original version of the ride was very much on rails, and the interactivity felt binary. You either get the coaxium or you don't. The new version is still on rails, but the rails are much looser. you have much more impact on how the adventure plays out. But the biggest upgrade to me is that it has that classic Star Wars feel, which was really missing from the original Corellia mission, which tied into everyone's favorite Star Wars movie, Solo. This new mission completely fixes that. All 4 planets are locations from the first 6 movies. There are several iconic John Williams songs weaved throughout the ride, different cues for different planets. For example, instead of the Galaxy's Edge theme starting the ride, "Move your stick to fly right and left," you get the Star Wars theme. Make the jump to hyperspace! This is the Millennium Falcon ride I was hoping for when they announced Galaxy's Edge. The Mandalorian and Grogu updates are just icing on the cake. It adds more characters you know to the mission, and the engineer also gets a Grogu button that makes cute Grogu videos play on your screen. But this update doesn't solve every issue people have with the ride. This is a very complex attraction in a way that a lot of guests find intimidating or overwhelming. These changes are all upgrades, but also add complexity. I went on the new ride 11 times and I didn't realize that thing about the missile button until I read Disney's blog post. But thankfully, the interactivity rewards engaging with the systems, but it doesn't punish you if you just want to go along for the ride. If you're worried about everything being too confusing or too overwhelming, my advice is just to pretend like it's Star Tours. And if you want to play the game, there's a lot more for you to dig into. Even after my 11 rides on this, there were many secrets I didn't see or uncover. So they've really massively increased the rerideability, and did it all on a very quick timeline. In a recent episode of Disney Unscripted, Asa Kalama talked about their development timeline.
We started about 18 months ago in a conference room, just sort of pitching a crazy ambitious idea for all the updates and changes we wanted to make to the attraction, and have all of those ideas that were in that initial pitch make it all the way across the finish line has been truly incredible.
That's 18 months to ship a completely revamped ride on both coasts without ever closing it to the public. That's the nimbler Imagineering in action. And that theme continues in an update that punches way above its weight, the Walt Disney Studios Courtyard. Think about the state of the animation courtyard just over a year ago. Mermaid had been closed for years. The Disney Junior show featured tie-ins to several shows that had been off the air. Star Wars launched in 2019, but its launch bay still lingered. Over a year ago, this was by far my pick for the worst area in Hollywood studios, and also probably in all of Disney World. It was a neglected cement cul-de-sac that lacked charm and theme. And oh my, how things have changed in a very short amount of time. The new Walt Disney Studios Courtyard is packed with charm. First of all, removing the giant Hollywood Studios arch actually has a giant impact on how the center of the park feels. It feels much more open, and the courtyard looks like an inviting area to explore and a natural extension of that hub. There's grass and trees and shade, plus design elements that are directly from the Burbank Animation Studios, like the Sorcerer's Hat or Pluto's Corner. The background music loop has beautiful arrangements of classic Disney animation songs. And there are character statues that bring the past and the present of Disney animation together in delightful ways. I was simply blown away by how much better and more thematic and more delightful this area feels. And the main attraction isn't even open yet, but I did get a special behind-the-scenes sneak peek of the magic of Disney animation, including the Mary Blair-inspired Alice in Wonderland playground, which is indoors and will be such a hit with families with young kids. They're gonna have character meet and greets themed to different departments and parts of the animation process. A drawing class featuring not only an Olaf animatronic, but also videos of animation legends teaching you how to draw, like Eric Goldberg teaching you how to draw the genie, and places for guests to just relax and be immersed in Disney animation. They're restoring a lot of the history of the animation building, and this revitalized courtyard really restores a lot of the heart of Hollywood studios. Add in the new staging of Little Mermaid that opened last year and the new Mickey Mouse Clubhouse live show, and Walt Disney Studios Courtyard is shaping up to be one of the best areas for families in all of Disney World. Speaking of Mickey Mouse, let's do a lightning round of family-centered updates that landed this summer. Mickey Mouse Clubhouse Live is the same show from California Adventure, and my kids absolutely adored it. And I think it's a big step up from the previous Disney Junior show that closed last year. But the biggest deal for kids is at Animal Kingdom. Bluey's Wild World is an interactive experience where you get to play games from the show like Keepy Uppy or Magic Asparagus. Playing games with Bluey and Bingo is as much wish fulfillment for little kids today as piloting the Millennium Falcon was for me growing up watching Star Wars. Coming from a dad who loves Bluey and has 2 kids who love Bluey, seeing them play with Bluey and Bingo was magical. My favorite addition from last year's Cool Kids Summer returns, the seasonal air-conditioned dance parties. This year, Goofy Corps is back at Epcot, but the new addition is Jessie's Roundup at the Diamond Horseshoe at Magic Kingdom. Last year, Magic Kingdom had an open-air circus act that was fun, but having a Jessie-centered experience, opening right as Toy Story 5 hits theaters, that's fully indoors and fully air-conditioned, is definitely an upgrade and just a huge win for families. But let's launch back into the rides, with the 2 final updates. One is pretty straightforward. Soarin' across America. There are a few big wins here. The visuals are great. They picked a really good lineup of locations that shows the beauty and diversity of the American landscape. And the intro is simply amazing. But the transitions aren't quite as dynamic. And it's the chillest version of Soarin' yet. Whether this is your favorite version or not really comes down to personal preference. My wife and son loved it. I still prefer California. But the big upgrade here is what it does for the future of the attraction. Disney has showed that they are willing to swap out the ride films from time to time and keep this attraction updated. I hope they keep doing that because it keeps Soarin' relevant and gives a great ride a longer shelf life.
Nice work, pal.
But let's go from chill to chaos, because I saved the most chaotic update for last.
And finally, we come to Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Muppets.
And there's a lot to unpack here, because this update is carrying the legacy of 2 beloved attractions. When Disney announced they were closing Muppet Vision 3D, they softened the blow by saying, hey, the Muppets are just moving down the road to Sunset Boulevard and taking over Rock and Roller Coaster, which also made fans of the Aerosmith version sad. And my personal reaction to the news was very mixed. I was happy the Muppets weren't going away forever, and Rock and Roller Coaster was overdue for an update. But Muppet Vision 3D was a timeless classic that everyone of every age could enjoy together. Closing that to move the Muppets to an intense coaster with inversions and a 48-inch height requirement didn't seem like a great trade to me. And I've been praising how quickly Imagineering has been moving throughout this video, but honestly, the quick turnaround time here had tempered my expectations. Rock and Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith closed on March 1st, and Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Muppets opened just 86 days later on May 26th. So I was expecting this retheme to amount to a Muppety coat of paint on an oversized guitar. But once I stepped through the doors of GeForce Records, I was really taken aback by how much of the spirit of Muppet Vision lives on in Rock and Roller Coaster. Muppet Vision was a rare attraction where the pre-show was just as vital to see as the show. Some of my favorite gags lived across those 3 monitors above the holding area. And that tradition carries on here, and then some. First, when you enter the Rotunda, there are video screens with over 30 minutes of unique Muppet content. There are tons of bits, gags, celebrity cameos. It's all very Muppets. And as you continue in, there are artifacts like Kermit's banjo, clever visual gags, custom album art, Easter eggs upon Easter eggs upon Easter eggs, Pizza Rizzo, Sweetums looking for Bean Bunny, Keys Under the Mat, Muppet Mobile Labs. The line is brimming with humor, detail, and delight packed into every single square foot. The pre-show itself is a big upgrade. The screen has been brought in closer and is now an LED screen, which looks phenomenal. The effect of the band being there in the room works better than ever before. And then there are the animatronics. As I say on the show, everything's better with animatronics. The penguins are back from Muppet Vision, probably just for the halibut. But Scooter is brand new and he belongs in the Animatronic Hall of Fame, because Imagineers worked to make him feel not like an animatronic, but a puppet.
Electric Mayhem, we should really be heading to your concert? We're already very late. Whoa!
You can see he even has an arm rod that drives the actual movement. There are no mechanics in the actual arm. In a move that's worthy of Muppet Labs, they even went as far as to motion capture Scooter. And the effect is incredible. I was very fortunate to attend a grand opening party with the Muppets performing, which was amazing and a bucket list item for me. I got to party with Rizzo. But it was also instructive because I was able to see the real actual Scooter puppeteered from just a few feet away.
Yeah,
Where's the band?
well, I think they went to get churros with Stamos.
In the middle of a show?
Yeah, I know, right? It feels more like a Mickey's ice cream bar kind of moment, if you ask me.
And it felt extremely similar to watching this animatronic. Imagineering nailed this. The pre-show also has some great nods to Rock and Roller Coaster.
How about backstage passes for everyone? I love that idea.
There are cameos from the cast of the Aerosmith ride, Ileana Douglas and Ken Marino, and the ride itself feels very similar, in a way that has invited some criticism online. People say they didn't change Rock and Roller Coaster enough, and compared to other re-themes like Frozen Ever After, Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, and Tiana's Bayou Adventure, the on-ride changes aren't as dramatic. The story, the setting, and even the name are all the same. The coaster track is the same, the launch is the same, and the on-ride visuals are updated but similar. You still go by oversized Hollywood icons, now updated with Muppet Mayhem. And that's the point. I think Disney could have changed more if they really wanted to. But David Brescia, the Imagineer who was the story lead on Muppet Rock and Roller Coaster, revealed something that completely reframes the ride for me.
You know, the Muppets have such a great history of like playing in different stories and different roles, right? If we think about like the Muppets Christmas Carol or the Muppets Treasure Island, like that's sort of how we think about this is like the Muppets doing Rock and Roller Coaster, right?
Disney is treating Rock and Roller Coaster like a classic story in the theme park canon, just with Muppets now taking on the roles of the band, the manager, the sound engineer, and more. Like Muppet Christmas Carol, the beats are all the same, but presented in a way that only the Muppets can. It's somehow both parody and a sincere recreation. So of course the ride itself looks and feels similar. But now not only do you see oversized Hollywood icons, there are new signs and clever Easter eggs. I've been riding on this coaster track for almost 30 years, and this is the first time ever that the ride made me laugh. And the new randomized soundtrack of 5 songs gives the ride a lot more variety. Rock Rock Till You Drop and Walking on Sunshine have very different feels, and both somehow work. I still haven't gotten song 2, but I got every other song, and I think the lineup is really strong. Surprisingly, Love Roller Coaster was my favorite. It just gave me that Guardians Cosmic Rewind feel of this roller coaster is now a party, and I couldn't help but sing along. And once again, they really upped the re-rideability here. There are so many different bits and gags in the live stream. In the pre-show, several different characters can appear in the screen behind Scooter with unique gags. There's 5 very different songs on the ride, and Statler and Waldorf have a lot of different complaints they say as you exit.
Uh-oh, I think these folks are stuck.
Now they know how we feel.
There will be something new to notice or experience each time you go on. And rewritability is a very important theme here. The upgrades to Muppets, Millennium Falcon, and Buzz all take existing rides and make them much more rewritable than ever. Muppets rewards repeats with new songs and gags. Millennium Falcon and Buzz rewards repeats with gameplay depth and secrets. And I think leaning into rewritability is part of a bigger strategy that has everything to do with the future of the parks and expansions like Villains Land. Disney CFO Hugh Johnston recently said that Disney World is effectively operating at or near capacity, that they can't really let more guests in without negatively impacting the guest experience without expansion. And what most people don't realize is that there are multiple ways to expand capacity. Yes, you can add new rides and lands, and those are coming, like Tropical America's, Monsters Inc., Piston Peak, and Villains Land. Those will help, but many of them are years away. But you know what else expands capacity and doesn't take as long? Revitalizing existing attractions. All these updates and upgrades renew guest interest in these attractions. More guests are drawn to them, and when the experience is actually improved and rewards rewritability, they'll want to go all of them again and again. And not only does it leverage more of the existing capacity that they have, but it helps prepare the way for the big headliners. For example, when Cars or Villains opens in Magic Kingdom and causes a big spike in crowds and interest, the rest of the park can absorb those crowds. People can have a great time riding Buzz or Big Thunder or say a refreshed Carousel of Progress while they wait for a lightning lane for the Cars ride or maybe a virtual queue for a Villains attraction. And Disney has proven that they can bring multiple updates online in an accelerated time frame without sacrificing quality. I think having these refreshes as a complement to these massive expansions is a really smart strategy, and one I hope they keep up the pace with. Before we get to the final verdicts, this kind of breakdown, the strategy behind the magic, is exactly what I do every week in my newsletter, The Tip Board. If you want this lens on Disney news as it's happening, the link's in the description. Okay, now time to answer the question I asked at the beginning. Which upgrade is the best upgrade? And there are actually 2 different awards, the biggest upgrade and the best upgrade. The biggest upgrade, which is by far the most improved thing at Disney World in terms of what was there before and what is there now, is the Walt Disney Studios Courtyard. It went from one of the worst areas in Disney World to one of the most charming. and restores a huge part of the heart of Hollywood studios. More of this, please. But the best upgrade is at a ride, and there are 3 contenders. Each one of them left me with the feeling of I can't wait to go on this again. Buzz, Millennium Falcon, and Rock 'n' Roller Coaster. Buzz revitalizes a 27-year-old ride in a way that makes it more fun and relevant than ever. Millennium Falcon delivers the Star Wars experience I've been dreaming of my whole life, with huge upgrades in graphics, music, and interactivity. And Rock 'n' Roller Coaster starring the Muppets brings so much chaos, humor, and fun to this coaster that it feels completely fresh. I think you could make a good case for any of these 3 as the best upgrade. But I have to go with what my heart is telling me. And you know, I didn't think Rock 'n' Roller Coaster was a great fit as the first Muppets ride. If you were going to make a blue sky concept for a Muppet ride from scratch, you wouldn't start here. But part of what has made the Muppets work over their 70-year history is that they are chaotic and unpredictable and willing to reinvent themselves. And I was so surprised with how well this ride works, not just as a reskin for Rock 'n' Roller Coaster, but as a Muppets ride. It's funny, it's quotable, it's a party, it's chaos. It carries on the legacy of Muppet Vision in ways I didn't really think was possible, but also the legacy of Rock 'n' Roller Coaster. For many people, this was their gateway coaster. For me, it was my first ever launch and diversion back in 1999. So I have a lot of affection for the ride. I think having the Muppets taking over makes it even more of a fun and inviting gateway. And it just shows how great of a theme park property the Muppets are, because they can play in different genres so well. Not only did Imagineering nail it with this retheme, but it also just proves that they shouldn't stop here. Muppets belong in the parks, and I hope this just launches them into an exciting new era. So that makes it my pick for the best upgrade this year. But I want to hear from you. What is your favorite upgraded attraction this year? Is there anything that you don't think is an upgrade? And what classic attraction do you hope Disney refreshes next? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to go deeper, I'm putting together a full breakdown of how they pulled off the Falcon overhaul, and a bigger analysis of what the Muppets refresh says about attraction rethemes overall. Subscribe so you catch those. This has been James Grosh from Guide to WDW. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you real soon.
Well, the show's over. Everyone's leaving.
Yeah, that's our favorite part.
Okay, very funny.